Welcome to the EVready Podcast, featuring industry leaders and their perspectives on electrification, hosted by EVready Energy. Hey everybody, welcome to the EVready Podcast. I have with me Don Weatherbee, CEO of Regenx Tech. Don, thank you so much for taking the time. What you're doing is really interesting and excited to talk about it.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm always excited to have a chance to tell people what we're doing.
You know, admittedly, Don, usually when I have people on, it's like from the traditional, I would say like EV charging, battery, solar, sustainability space. But yours is very different. It's solving a problem that's funny. I was at a battery conference yesterday, and there was a big component of that tied to like sustainable recycling. And it was kind of good. It was good timing. So yeah, give us a little bit about like your background and how it brought you to the position that you're in now with Regenx.
Sure. So it's a little bit of a winding history. My training's in accounting, finance, and
Same.
I started doing that in the mining industry. A little bit in coal, and then moving into oil sands. And I spent a bunch of years on various financial, operational perspectives in that industry, and moved to the current company thinking that I was going into just another mining company. But as I joined, an opportunity came up to refocus from being an explorer to having material processing. And so we started down the path of going into material processing. And from there, we were going to go after old tailings of gold mines. And what used to be uneconomical could potentially be economical with changes in technology. But it's like anything, once you start doing something, people pop up and say, but could you do this? And so we winded through a little bit of e-waste and then had an opportunity in catalytic converters. And
did you say e-waste?
Yeah.
What is that, just to define? Because a lot of our
Sure.
listeners, this is new stuff to them.
Sure. So e-waste is all the used up electronics. And why it's particular of a value is most of the times all those computer boards and that have precious metals, whether they be copper or gold or silver, all throughout those chips. And so most of the e-waste is about trying to separate out those precious metals from the waste materials.
Got it. Okay.
So ended up asking if we could do what we were doing with e-waste in the catalytic converter market. And there was a specific niche in that, what's called the diesel sector, and has a different substrate than your regular gas automobiles. Traditional recyclers weren't able to accept or didn't want to accept the diesel ones. So this partner that we had said, can you come in and do this? And we started down that process, and we've made a success of it.
That's so interesting. And was there any component of it of like, was there a passion around the environment? Do you have that in any way? Or did you just see a market gap?
Two parts. Is that doesn't matter about passion. If there isn't a market, it's not going to survive. So there had to be a market for it to move into. But coming from the mining sector, the mining gets a little bit of a black eye in that thinking that people are just never thinking environmentally. Most of the times in the mining sector, you're stewards of the land. You're out in the land. You see what it's done, what it can be, what it gets turned back into. Looking to the future and saying, we can't count on just pulling more out of the earth. Mines are finite. Resources are finite. There's only so much in the world. And we've had a bad history of just thinking that we could throw it away and get more. So the passion always came to be, how do we get more? Whether it's through technologies to improve mining, or it's different ways to enhance our alternatives to mining.
Can you add a timeline to this story? And what I mean by that is, so diesel catalytic converters, you realize that it was more difficult to recycle than other converters that might be out there. At what timeline did you realize this was a problem? And how did that grow? How did that scale? How did that expand? What's the timeline?
Sure.
Where is that today?
Sure. So we heard about this in 2020. We were approached at the beginning of 2020 with the opportunity of diesel catalytic converters. And so we started doing some lab research at that point in time. And our process has been, well, we did the lab research, then we built a pilot plant, which was had sort of 25 kilogram capacity. Did research in the pilot plant, then started designing a commercial facility and built the commercial facility. And those design and builds, they're always challenging because you're building a one-of-a-kind, first-of-a-kind. So even the lessons you learn from the steps before don't necessarily translate as you step up. So we've done all that work, and we were up and running, and we were starting to process, had a few technical glitches, then got hit with Hurricane Helene here at the end of 2024. And so that shut us down. And during that time, it highlighted that we needed to move facilities. So we're in the process of finishing our move and recommissioning our plant. So right now, that's where we are. We had it up and running. We were successfully operating, then had to retool and revive ourselves. And we're just about ready to bring it back on stream.
Talk to me about like what it entails, like what's going to happen in this facility from a testing perspective. What value is it providing you? What value will it provide the industry?
Sure. Traditional recycling is all done by smelters, your pyro type thing. And so their concept is to melt it all. And the difference between diesel and gas is the substrate that they're built on. And for people who don't understand a catalytic converter is part of your exhaust system. It's part of the muffler. And it has its own little separate piece, and it just looks like a muffler underneath the car. But inside it is a honeycomb, and that honeycomb is coated with precious metals, mainly platinum and palladium. And these honeycombs are built in a way to try to maximize the airflow through to make as many of the chemical reactions as possible. And the concept of a catalytic converter, it was the initial environmental emissions control device. It was a game changer, really, for the environment. I mean, people my age and older remember what the cities were like in the 70s, like just smog, like you could cut the air with a knife. And you don't see that anymore. Like the skies are a lot cleaner around the cities. And that's all to do with catalytic converters, converting these harmful smog gases to less harmful gases. So long road, winding road there, saying traditional smelters melting. Well, the diesel catalytic converters run at a hotter temperature than a gasoline engine. So they couldn't use the traditional ceramic type honeycomb. And they have been being built out of a material called silicon carbide. And so silicon carbide is a much more robust piece. But you try to throw that into a furnace, and it creates some inefficiencies with their furnaces because it doesn't melt as easily as the other material. So the furnaces didn't want this silicon carbide. And that wasn't a big issue back 10 years ago because most of the catalytic converters started with cars and the gasoline engines. And so emissions were all based around doing those gasolines. And as different regulations have come in, it's moved down more and more to different segments of the market. So about 15 years ago, 20 years maybe, there became a lot more regulation on diesel engines, that they had to actually have catalytic converters too. And you look back at those times, you used to remember all the trucks with the big belching black smog coming out of them. Well, you don't see that anymore, and that's all catalytic converters. So they're more recent to the party, which then allowed, well, then the smelters still don't want it, but it's getting to be a bigger and bigger section of the pie that's out there as scrap. And that's where we've come in to try to find a solution.
That's interesting. How many like companies are out here doing this? Like, would you consider this a big market? Are there a lot of competitors? Like, where's the market?
So we're right now really one of the few ones and only ones that are in a hydro-metallurgical state to do these converters without using a smelter. There's a few others that are in some of the news and that, but they're all still at the lab stage.
For all of the people that need that in layman's terms, including myself, talk about why that's important, why that's unique.
Well, so what's unique is we use chemicals. We use a chemical solution, and we're not burning them. So the difference is that where our process is, we put it into a chemical leach to separate out the materials. The other alternatives are all fire-based. And
Got
so
it.
the emissions they create, the energy they create, well, we're minuscule compared to those.
That's really interesting. So from your perspective, like it sounds like you feel like it's the beginning of this market developing right now, and I'm sure these converters. How long does a converter last?
Most converters last the life of a vehicle.
Okay,
So unless
11 years.
Yeah, you got your
Yeah.
11 to 15 type time frame.
Yeah.
Only if you get something that runs through your emission control system that harms it. But generally, they're a lifetime piece of your vehicle.
Okay. How do you see this process, this technology changing in the coming years? Do you think the industry is going to move towards the way that you're doing it? Do you think there's advancements in how you're doing it that that will be valuable in the future? Like, talk a little bit about that.
I see in the niche that we're working in, we're going to have the leading technology for it. And it will split itself out that your smelters will do what they're doing because they can run it much cheaper than we can. When you're just putting it all into a melting pot, and if you've paid for the capital of your plant, which most of these smelters are old plants, well, then they can run that cheaper. Mm-hmm. But the concept of if you're growing this market, the addition of smelters is hard to do. I mean, regulatory, environmental, they're just not something you want to put up anywhere. So ours is a much smaller footprint, can be done in a warehouse, can be done in an industrial park. So we have a lot of advantages on how we can set up and how we can be modular, build to the sites specific. So we don't have to be huge. A smelter has to be huge. Well, we can be a smaller footprint for specific areas.
Who are the customers that were dealing with these issues before that you're working with?
Yeah. So the core customers are your scrap dealers. And so they're the ones who get end-of-life vehicles and they're collecting them. And what we're now pushing is that there is a home for these. Because traditionally, whether or not they took the time to take them off the vehicle before it was just crushed down, there wasn't that much of a market for it. So they wouldn't do the extra work for recovering them. So now we're educating the supply chain that there is a home for this type of material.
Interesting. And I think my last question for you is, second to last question is, talk to me about, like, we're in a really weird moment in time in the world right now.
Yes,
to say the least. How is your industry impacted by everything that's going on?
Uncertainty is not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Just fundamentally, uncertainty hurts everybody because you don't know what you don't know is going to happen in the next day or two. So that's always a piece. On the macro level, not much affects us. Is that we're based in Tennessee, and almost all of our product is locally sourced. It's all U.S.-based sourced. We're looking to supply the precious metals back into the U.S. marketplace. So on an insular basis, we're good. But on an economy-wise basis, what we don't want to see is a large recession where things like demand for vehicles drops.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if all that demand and all that goes down, well, your scrap market gets affected on the back end. Because we saw it during COVID. When people stopped buying cars, well, the amount that were being scrapped reduced substantially. As a summary of that, the tariff, the changes in pieces, they're not direct effects on us.
Yeah.
But we're part of the marketplace, and things that make the market unstable.
The world affects you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world affects you too. That's fair. Okay. For folks that are listening about this the first time, they want to learn more about it, for potential customers who are watching this, who you can help, what's the message to them? How do they get in touch with you? What are next steps?
Yeah. So our simplest place where we direct most people to is our website, Regenx.tech, which we try to have a lot of different information on how we fit in, what we're doing, those types of pieces. That's where our sort of main source of contact is. And as a general message, what we're trying to get out to the world is there's now a solution for something that was not considered ideal in the marketplace. And so we're trying to push to supplier levels is that, no, there's a good reason for you to try to collect the diesel that you thought was not as valuable. There's now an outlet for that the traditional ones didn't want to have.
Is there any geography that you don't service in North America?
Well, we're mainly Eastern Seaboard, but we service the whole piece. It all depends on transportation. I mean, that's always getting material shipped across the country affects what you can do on economics. But
yeah. Got it. Okay. Well, Don, thanks for taking the time. Like, it's a really interesting topic, probably something that's not like front of mind for everybody in the sustainability space. And I think sustainable recycling in general is going to...
I'll give you one more term that we kind of like to fall into. It's called urban mining. Urban mining is what we call it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. And have an awesome day. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.